maybe for those people who are watching who are not yet familiar with you and who you are and what you do, maybe you can give us just a brief background of how you identify yourself and your work and where you went to school and things like that, and then we can talk more in depth about the work.
For sure. I was born and raised in Rhode Island, and I happened to go to school at the Rhode Island School of Design, which is 10 minutes from my hometown. And I got my BFA in ceramics in 2007. And then I moved to Helena, Montana for 2 years on a fellowship and residency. And that was from 2007 to 2009. And then I moved to LA, and I've been here for about 11 years, I think. I've been in this studio for about 6 years, full-time artist, which has been really amazing.
How large is the studio there, roughly?
It's 1,000 square feet, and it's plenty of space for me. I have one kiln. That's not very standard for an artist with multiple galleries. And a lot of my friends who work in ceramics have 3 or 4. I'm very much a minimalist. I can actually create quite a bit of work with just this one kiln.
So talk about that technique and tell us what the process is like.
I build my sculptures out of stoneware, and they're very rudimentary. It takes maybe 1 or 2 days. I work on 2 at a time. So they're pretty rudimentary shapes. The vessel, kind of like a vessel. And then once they dry out, I submerge them in these huge tubs of mud or slip. It's called the slip, that I add sand and glaze to. And when I take them out, they're about 3 or 4 times the thickness, and it cracks and creates lots of beautiful textures. Then once that dries completely, I fire it in my kiln. I take it out. I apply color. I airbrush color very carefully. I put it back in the kiln, so on and so forth. And I build up layers of glazes through maybe 3 or 4, actually 4 to 5 firings. So each piece is fired multiple times. That's how I get the depth and volume of thick glazes.
Do you, in terms of labels, which is, there's been a lot of discussion of labels in the world generally, but how would you describe yourself? Are you a sculptor, an artist, a ceramicist? Is there a colorist? I mean, how would you describe your practice?
I definitely, I've been doing ceramics since I was 14. And I definitely consider my work sculpture that's made in ceramics. I don't have any control over, this is one thing that I've always kind of had issue with other artists who work in ceramics, that they don't want to be named a ceramicist or a ceramic artist. To me, I don't really have any control over that. I'm very proud of the materials that I use. I don't consider myself a mixed media artist, really. If somebody wants to call me a ceramicist, I'm not going to correct them. But I've seen senior artists say that you're not allowed to call me that. I'm a sculptor. That's not something I'll ever do.
I want to ask you more about the glaze and the use of color, and I also want to talk specifically in a bit about the piece you've generously donated to the auction. But can you talk about the role of color and glaze and how those affect the work and influence the work?
I work with maybe 20 to 30 different glazes and textures, and maybe 13 different colors. And each piece shares a similar pigment. So if like most of my works have some pink in it, it's all the same pigment. So each piece, even though they're wildly different from the next, they still share a color theme or theme color.
We've talked a little bit about the color and the texture. Let's talk more about the forms and these craters and this body of work. Can you tell us how that started and how you describe the craters?
Once I set up my studio, I realized that I had like all this time on my hands, and there's only so much work I could make per day or per week. So I really wanted to go and travel and do something really, really cool. So I went to the Galapagos Islands. I think it was in 2016, 2007, 2016. And it had like a huge impact on me and kind of transformed my studio. I was on Isabella Island for a week, and I was able to hike the Sierra Negra crater, which is a massive hole in the earth. I forget how wide it is, maybe like a quarter of a mile across. And the perimeter was just like one of the most exciting things I've ever seen. I mean, this is like the first time I ever truly left the United States other than Tijuana and Montreal. So that, I mean, that experience, I remember thinking, wow, this might have like a big impact on my studio. I'm just not sure how. But as I was there, I was already planning my next trip. And that kind of inspired me to go to 20 and 30 different countries in the next 3 years, looking at giant holes in the earth, which led to tropical rainforests, protected barrier reefs, safaris in Africa, all sorts of stuff. Cloud forests, which is one of my favorite areas to visit. So all these things, all these places that I visited over the course of 3 years, in between each trip or each country, I was developing these sculptures that were loosely based on the craters. So that's like the basis of the whole body of work, and it's ongoing. I haven't traveled lately, but I already have some plans to continue visiting these remote areas for more inspiration. But that's pretty much the idea behind them.
And the piece that you generously donated, which just looks spectacular. I haven't seen it in person yet, but I've seen the images. And this is from the Crater series.
Yeah. So for years I'm still doing bright pinks and bright oranges and reds and greens. But suddenly I started making some monochromatic sculptures, just the absence of color, and but also applying all the textures and the sheens and variations of as much variation as possible, but with like one single color or one or two colors, like black and white. This particular piece, because it's so unique, I rarely make monochromatic pieces. I wanted it to have like the spotlight of this auction. I thought it would be a really good opportunity for people to see that I'm not just like this like wild color guy.
Great. Well, the museum is very fortunate to have an example from this new body of work and this new direction. It's really an elegant piece. Let's talk finally about what you've got on the horizon in your professional life.
Okay. I just closed a big show in Milan at Massimo De Carlo, which is my second project with them, second solo show, which was really, really exciting. It was in the Belgioso Palazzo, which is like the opposite of a white cube. It has like marble floors and chandeliers, and it was my biggest gallery show to date. I think I had 20 sculptures and 12 paint cans, and I was able to go there for 52 hours during the pandemic with the right documents, and definitely a crazy experience. Now that is still up, but it's closing in a couple of days, and another show in Athens, Greece is opening with Bernier Eliadis, which is my first project with them. It's a smaller show, but consists of 12 sculptures and some new, more traditional round shapes. This year is very busy. So then I just got an offer from Blum & Poe in Los Angeles, which is one of the galleries that I've been wanting to show with for years. And I finally had the opportunity to exhibit my large sculpture for the first time in Los Angeles. And I'll have a group of work. Last year, Berlutti, a huge fashion designer named Chris Van Asch, who is the main head designer for Dior for 10 years, just moved to Berlutti, and he reached out to me, and he wanted to collaborate on a whole fashion line. And this was through Massimo De Carlo. They contacted them first, and Massimo came to me with this idea. And they're like, "You should do it. This guy is very reputable, and Berlutti is pretty major." And I thought like maybe it would be like a small collaborative, but it actually turned out to be much bigger than I anticipated. And what I didn't really have to make artwork for the collaborative. I mostly sent over high-res pictures to Berlutti, and they went through maybe 100 different works, and then they flattened the images out, and then they superimposed it on a whole line of textiles and items that came out really, really amazing. And everything was embroidered, everything was super super perfect. I don't know. It's like it's just the way that they crafted the clothing was just looked so amazing. And now I have now I'm going to be able to go shopping for my own art, for my own artwork with Berlutti.
Well, good for you. That's exciting. I can't wait to see the new work. And I want to thank you again, first of all, for the generous donation to the auction and the support of the auction, which is so meaningful.